Good afternoon and welcome. Without further delay, let's begin. As I begin, I want to acknowledge the land we are on and the original caretakers of this land. The University of Washington acknowledges the Coast Salish peoples of this land, the land which touches the shared waters of all tribes and bands within the Suquamish, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot nations. This statement is important because it is an acknowledgement that most of us are uninvited guests on the original land of the Coast Salish peoples. By making this statement, it is also an acknowledgement of the sovereignty of our tribal nations. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Ricky Hall, and I have the honor of serving as the Vice President of the Office of Minority Affairs and Diversity and as the university's diversity officer. To begin today, it is my pleasure to invite the 33rd President of the University of Washington, Dr. Anamari Kase, to welcome us to this event.
I've got to say, this is so incredibly cool. It was just so wonderful being up at the reception and seeing so many faces and seeing, young people that are still young people, but who were really young people, who I'm not sure that I knew were they going to be able to make it, were they going to have difficulties, who struggled to get through, and who are now in positions of authority, positions of power, and who are not just, reaching up, but they're reaching back, and they're bringing others with them, and who say in unison that it was the work of Emil, people like Sheila, and now Ricky, of all the people in OMAD and the different centers that we have related to that is what made a difference in their lives. And there's nothing more important. I had the pleasure of guest lecturing in a class today that was all about how to create a meaningful life. And that's what makes life meaningful. It's that helping others, the bringing people together. And it's just so fun to see all these faces and all these generations in one room together, and my memories are just going, 1,000 miles a minute. And that's what's so fun. I'm not only the 33rd president, I've been here for more than 33 years. And actually, I'm inching up on 40. I started when I was 12, just to be clear. And it really is my honor to welcome you to what's a very, very special event for all of us. We're celebrating some of the true heroes of our past and of our presence, because this book is not just about the past. It really is about laying the foundation for the present and the future. And with Revolution to Evolution, Emil has really given us an invaluable gift. He's given us so many invaluable gifts, but this is one more. So grateful that our history and the lived experience of those who made it is being preserved and being shared. We can't take for granted that these stories will continue to live on unless we take the time to put them down and to write them down and to share them. And I am so incredibly pleased that Emil has done that. And I can't think of a better person to chronicle this period, because he was such a part of living it and making it happen. It also is a real tribute to the courage of the activists and their fight for a more equitable UW. That's what I mean by it's not about the past. It's about creating a present and a future. They helped articulate and realize the values that define our university today. There's no question about it. They were brave individuals who made our university better, and they were vital to the movement for educational equity that has created more and more space for students like them. Many of them were here, and they were part of a tiny minority, and we're still not where we need to be, but it's a much bigger cohort, and that's because of the work they did. They forged a new future for the University of Washington, and because of our scale and our reach in forging a new history for this university, they forged a new history for our state, for our world, and the nation. And they helped us begin a transformation that, I want to be clear, is still going on now. Their work is not finished, and that's part of why it's so important to put it down, because we need to, one of the things, I love working in a multi-generational setting, and part of what I love about it is that, every once in a while, I'll be honest, I get complacent. Things are so much better than they were when I was a student. And sometimes I know that students despair, and they're saying, things never change. And that yin and yang, they remind me, we have so much left to do. But I can tell them, yes, but what you're doing now will make a difference, even if you don't see it right away. And it's putting all that together, because change is possible, but change doesn't stop. And Emil, and so many of you are mentioned in the book because you are part of that history. And I know that you are still here pushing us to get better. There's a lot more work to do. I would love to be up here and say, hey, racism and inequity, it's gone. In fact, we're seeing it more clearly. For a while, we actually did. I naively thought it was receding, and it is so much more virulent than I thought that it had been. But that doesn't mean that we haven't made progress, but it does mean we have a lot more progress to make. And your shared commitment to a better future is part of why you're here, and part of what inspires me, and part of what I know inspired Emil to write this book. Today, we get to honor that commitment by preserving, understanding, and celebrating the history that brought us this far. And we can ask, what can we learn from those giants, including Emil and the people he taught? How do we get on their shoulders? How do we make sure that we continue to push that rock up and keep the boulder going forward? How can we extend this extraordinary legacy? And it's not just something that, we have a responsibility to do that, because we have a responsibility to make things better for the next generation. We're leaving them with a lot of problems, there's no question, but what's so important about the EC, about OMAD, et cetera, is it doesn't solve the problems in the world for the future, but it gives our remarkable students the tools that they will need to help bring that boulder and to help solve that problem. And it builds in them, because I've seen so many students that have gone through the ECC, who have gone through the Ethnic Cultural Center, who have been part of this community, who really didn't have any faith in themselves. And they gathered courage, they gathered faith. They were working with people who saw how incredibly intelligent they were in a world that often was telling them they didn't matter. And that is part of the legacy that we celebrate. But I know that you're not here to listen to me. We are all here to listen to Emil Patry, who was honored, in case you don't remember, with a Charles E. Odegaard recipient 2 years ago. Very well-deserved honor. Emil, your university owes you a debt that we can never, never repay. And this book just increases our gratitude. I'm so lucky to be able to call you a friend. That's part of what happens with being part of a community for so long. You've been a visionary, you've been a leader. I can tell you that you inspire me. We're Facebook friends, we exchange pictures, and in those moments when I'm feeling down, Emil comes through for me. So let us all use that very, very bright light that Emil has brought on the past and towards the future, to work together, to carry on this legacy that started half a century ago, and to continue to push the boulder forward, to make the world better, to make the world more equitable. Emil, thank you so much you're the gift that keeps on giving, not just to me, but to all of us.
Thank you, President Kase, for your words and for the role that you've played in the history of the Office of Minority Affairs and Diversity. You've been a supporter, you've been a champion, and a donor to the Office of Minority Affairs and Diversity, so thank you. And thank you all for joining us today. We have had an extraordinary response to this event, and we are thrilled that you could make it to celebrate with us this publishing of the book, Revolution to Evolution. On the OMAD YouTube channel. We're delighted that you all are with us, including those folks on the live stream. This book has been a long time in the making. Building on the OMAD 50th anniversary, next month, OMAD turns 55. That's 55 years of excellence. This book was possible because many people helped along the way, and I want to recognize some of those people now. Of course, Emil Petrie, and I'll say more about him a little bit later. His amazing partner, Barbara Petrie, and their family. They sacrificed much so that Emil could pour into the students and the university that he loved so much, and I recognize that, so thank you. Peter Beck, who is a book publisher. Peter is here somewhere, so thank you, Peter. Myron Apalato and his partner, Diane, I think I've seen Myron here somewhere. Oh, over here, former VP of the Office of Minority Affairs and Diversity. Rusty Barcelo, who's not here, other VPs who came before, and of course that visionary Sam Kelly, I call him the visionary, and countless alumni, faculty, staff, and students who supported OMAD and the research done to complete the history to date. I often hear from students and alumni who share about the impact OMAD made in their college experience. From finding community, to being supported academically, to being linked to staff that really saw them, to being surrounded by folks who believe in their potential, they credit OMAD for contributing to their academic success and helping to develop skills that have contributed to their success in life. Your presence tonight is testimony to the lasting impact of the work countless professionals, instructors, advisors, and staff over the years have made. You truly are the living legacy of the Office of Minority Affairs and Diversity. Before I do some introductions, I want to say a special thank you, and I'm sure you thought I missed you and forgot about you, didn't you? I want to say a special thank you to Dr. Sheila Edwards-Lang and also her partner, Kip, who's here with her tonight. Sheila's also a former VP. Sheila is also a former VP of the Office of Minority Affairs and Diversity and current Chancellor of the University of Washington-Tacoma. It was Sheila who commissioned the book initially, and I had the honor to make sure that the project was completed. So thank you, Sheila, for your vision. In just a few moments, OMAD Senior Director of Strategy and Planning, Jeanette James, will moderate a conversation with our book author, Senior Advisor to the VP, Emil Petrie. Jeanette leads key DEI and belonging efforts across the University of Washington and was integral in the planning and execution of the OMAD 50th anniversary celebrations. Dedicated to community building and service, Jeanette co-founded and served as inaugural president of the Seattle Urban League Young Professionals, an organization that fosters advocacy, civic engagement, and professional development for Black professionals. She is a graduate of Leadership Tomorrow and an active member of the Greater Seattle Lynx and the National Coalition of 100 Black Women. Jeanette is a dedicated life member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. She holds a PhD in education from the University of Washington. The author of Revolution to Evolution almost needs no introduction. Emil Petrie was there in 1968 when students from the UW Black Student Union and their supporters staged the now infamous sit-in that led to the establishment of the Office of Minority Affairs and Diversity. He was there when the university administration created what is now known as the Office of Minority Affairs and Diversity and has served the students, faculty, staff, and alumni at the university for over 50 years. Not only was he involved in creating transformational change at our university for all those years, but Emil has also dedicated his life to the access and success of underrepresented minorities, first generation, and low-income students, creating generational change for decades. His leadership throughout the years and his commitment to our Office of Minority Affairs and Diversity mission is extraordinary. Emil has become a trusted advisor and confidant to me and the other leaders in OMAD who came before me. His institutional knowledge and his ability to recall the names, faces, and stories of so many that have walked this campus over the past 55 years made him the ideal person to document this history. Please welcome Jeanette James and my Phi Beta Sigma fraternity brother, Emil Petrie.
Hi, Emil.
Hi.
I want to start by saying thank you so much for this book. It's impeccably written, beautiful storytelling. You're brilliant, so we know the research was detailed and on point, the data, the graphs, it is the pictures. It's just a work of art, and it's just a beautiful historical piece. So thank you so much for the book, and we are all indebted to you.
Thank you.
And this really is a book whose time has come. Talk to us about the importance of telling this story, and particularly of us telling our own story. Why was it vitally important for OMAD to commission this book?
Well, I like to say that if we don't tell our story, then the revisionists will. And then it will fit their agenda rather than the true agenda. They would not, they would brush over it and not give the details that this storied history deserve. So for me to do it, and I'm a detailed person, and all the people who've edited this book, I'm sure they realize that, because I want to make sure that everything is covered. I'll leave it to others to, distill it down, but I want to make the complete story known. So it's important because there are lots of our students who have come through this institution over those 50-year period don't realize what has happened. Some even don't even know. They make a distinction between OMAD and the Samuel Kelly Ethnic Cultural Center. They think that we're still back where we were 50 years ago because they don't know the story. They don't know that history. And that's really, really important for our younger generation to know the history, to know where you come from. Malcolm X didn't originate the quote, but he used it a lot. And he says, if you don't know your history, then you're bound to repeat it. And so they don't know that we have done so much for so many. And without this story, they wouldn't know who they are. And even the people who are highlighted in the book didn't realize the impact that they made, and a lot of them didn't realize who made that possible. But one of the things that really bother me about the activists today, when they want something to happen, they don't recognize that they should go through OMAD. OMAD is the conduit to the top. And they really set up the VPs to take the heat when they really should be find out what's been done, take that, and take it to the next level. President Kelsey said that things haven't been done. And when you look at Chapter 8, you'll see that we still need more to be done. We need to narrow all the different gaps, the enrollment gap, the retention gap, the graduation gap, the wealth gap, really, which is a deep one, but it's tied to achieving majors in the STEM fields. So there's a lot that the story needs to be told. They need to know, and when I know I've heard through the grapevine that when they approach the administration and say, well, we're back where we were before. We're not. I like to think of it as a spiral, and this is the point. And each time you come around, you're a little higher up, and you're higher up. And so we've gone from, just to use an example, 257 EOP students in 1968. Now there's 6,500. You know, and if they don't know that, they still thinking that nothing's been done. We started with 180 to 200 black students at the UW out of 30,000. Now we have at least 2,200 out of 30,000. Not to mention that there are at least 600 at UW-Tacoma and another 600 at UW Bothell. Of course, we need to do more, but recognize what we've done to be inspired to take it further.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
You know, I always say, I tell Jeanette and whoever asks questions of me, I answer the questions they should have asked. So once we get started,
Yes.
you know, I just take it to where.
So let me tell you the backstory. I knew moderating, Emil is my mentor. He is my friend. He is one of my favorite people in the world.
Yes.
But moderating Emil is a challenge because
Yeah.
Emil's going Emil. And
Yeah.
that's what we want.
Yeah.
That's what we want.
Yeah.
That's what we want.
Yeah, and you know, and I think so much of Jeanette that, you know, I was waiting to say, well, when's she gonna brief me on the questions? But Jeanette didn't so, but I wouldn't ask her because I respect her. And I figured she had something in mind
Yes.
to pull this off.
Yes.
So, you know, we roll with it.
Yes, yes. All right. Okay, I have another question for you. And I promise we are going to get to questions from you all. So I want you to already start thinking about the questions that you have. We're not going to take all of our time just with my questions.
Yes.
But let's talk about the title of the book, and in particular, two words, revolution and evolution. So I want you to give the audience a brief backstory of the title and how you got to revolution to evolution. And then I want you to tell me, do you think that it's a continuum, or are we always going back and forth between revolution and evolution?
Yes, the backstory is that when we were working on the 50th anniversary of OMAD, we had a committee chaired by Jeanette, who I call the general because she's just, you know, is taskmaster. And so we were discussing the title for the exhibition. And Antoinette Wheels, who really has been with me from day one for the full 5 years on this event, she said, revolution, evolution. And so that sounded really good to me. I like the rhythm, revolution, evolution. So, but I said from revolution to evolution. And then Peter Beck and his group said, we don't need from, it's revolution to evolution. And revolution was really what took place with the Black Student Union. And it really, that was even an evolution because we started with just becoming aware of the blatant contradiction between having a state institution with all taxpayers contributed to and only a few black students on campus. So we wanted to change that. And so we started to have that idea. But then we first started with an Afro-American Student Society. But there were people, very advanced thinking people, highly intellectual, and they started reading all these different books. And some of the books was about, the transition from, the civil rights movement throughout, and then to the point where we had ideas. We started studying true revolutionaries. And so we looked beyond just the issue with black students at the University of Washington, American Indians at the University of Washington, Chicanos at the University of Washington. We looked at it, it was a third world concept. It was about people all over the world who had been oppressed and exploited by this military industrial complex called the United States. So that was a revolutionary mindset. And we said, things need to change. And President Odegaard was open to change, but he wanted to say, well, we have a certain admissions requirement that we have to have. We have to have the faculty involved. And we said, we don't care what the admissions requirement is. We want it so that we want an alternative admission so that students who were not prepared from high school and the community colleges to be able to come to the University of Washington. And that's really how what is now called the Educational Opportunity Program. Students with potential, but not academic credentials or low academic credentials, should have an opportunity to attend the University of Washington. We wanted the institution to educate a cross-section of the citizenry. And that's what I really like about the University of Washington still. They tried to make that happen. And OMAD is a strong part of that. And all the presidents have been on board with that. But it was even beyond what the presidents were on board with. It was what the Board of Regents, the Board of Regents talked about the value of diversity, to having different experiences way back in the 70s. So this diversity, the positive side of diversity has been in existence. Even the BSU's letter to the president, they talked about a diverse class would be more beneficial than the one that they had before. And the letter that was written, I read it at another virtual talk that I did, and it was very compelling. And I could see why President Odegaard didn't even try to skirt around it. What he did was, he was prolonging it because he wanted to involve them. In terms of the revolution, evolution, for me, I think it's just the one revolutionary move. And then what came out of that, the Educational Opportunity Program, the Office of Minority Affairs, which later became the Office of Minority Affairs and Diversity, that's the evolutionary part. And it just keep evolving. To create another revolution would mean we've failed, because we need to be moving from there. And the one thing that I'm critical of in these the new groups, they want to protest, but it's, and act like they started, it's a new thing. And I tell them it started with Nat Turner and Denmark Visa. It goes all the way back, and you're just an extension of that. So that's the evolutionary part. Evolution will continue and continue until we reach parity in all those different arenas: enrollment, retention, graduation. The one thing I left out, academic performance, and along with increasing the wealth gap, closing the wealth gap. Those are the things that will continue until we reach there. And when you check out the book, you'll see in chapter 8, it's called 50 Next. We think we're going to need another 50 years to get where we need to go. But at this time, it's going to be that OMAD is at the helm. OMAD is leading this diversity effort. And diversity and the practices that have been learned over 55 years should be interwoven into whatever the University of Washington do. After all, we took the most at-risk students and graduated them, and they are out doing great things. So we know how it's supposed to be done. We have the best practices. acknowledge it rather than stealing it. And,
Yes,
and that's what happened.
yes.
So like I say in the streets, we're going to come at them hard.
So recently, I was at a conference with diversity and equity leaders from across the nation, and some of our colleagues in places such as Florida, Texas, Georgia, they're increasingly in these very hostile environments toward the work that they're doing. And I think President Kelsey also referenced this as well. It's almost like a rolling back of progress. What can we take from history? What can our colleagues across the country take from our compelling story, our case studies, our best practices, and from history to stay encouraged, to find new strategies to keep going? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think a part of that resistance, a lot has to do with politics. They know that there's a really racist element that they can appeal to, and they know that they try to take back all these things. Now, I said there's no need for a revolution. If they took it back, then we need to take the revolution to a higher level. But I don't, I think most of the places will continue to pursue what has been achieved at the University of Washington. And this is a really a unique situation. The sit-in only lasted 4 hours. Some sit-ins and occupation lasted days. People got arrested, people went to jail, people got injured. This happened in 4 hours. And then once President Odegaard agreed to what was supposed to happen, he got behind it. He put his top people into position to make it happen. And then there's been support from all over. And I must give a shout out really to the people who have been a part of OMAD for those 55 years. Because there were moves that were being made even here. They changed their admissions requirement after 11 years. Then 7 years later, they changed the admissions requirement again. And then in 1998, I-200 showed up. But OMAD people were steadily moving forward, finding ways to move forward. So what the DEI people should do, and for me, I'd focus on those who are not in the red states. This is the model. One of my BSU comrades said it's a magnum opus. It was, it was there. But I would say it's definitely the gold standard. It's the first that ever been done in the country. This is the way you can make it happen, any group. But you got to put up the dollars. You got to put up the money. And I think what has made this program be successful is the staff went out and got money. They didn't just wait for the legislature to allocate funds. They went out and got money. And over half of this multi-million-dollar budget that exists now was because of the efforts of the staff. We have programs that were funded as early as 1980, and it's still around. The Student Support Services, SSS, has been around since 1980. That's 43 years. The Department of Education has gotten behind that. And because of those successes, they continue. So the University of Washington continues to get money. We've gotten support from the private sector, and that was all even during Odegaard's time. People contributed. Once we got started, the faculty created courses in math and English that would prepare students to meet the rigors of the regular course. Those courses still exist 50-some years later, and students didn't have to, they were called remedial, but students didn't have to take the course and not get credit. They got credit toward graduation. That was a commitment that the institution has made, and that's the commitment that continues to make. Myron Appilato, Sheila Edwards Lang, Rusty Barcelo, they were down for it, and they made the case. I love about Sheila, she loved data, and I found a way to be in her good graces forever because I know she would take that data and use it to make sure we didn't get budget cuts. One of the reasons why Sam Kelly left is because Odegaard promised him to never cut the budget, even in economic downturns. But Hogness cut it, and a few other things that led to him leaving. But that was a tragic situation. But he left a strong foundation for us to build on. And Ricky called him the visionary he was. And Odegaard was only here for 3 years during his tenure. If he had been here 6 years, we might have half the campus.
That actually segues perfectly into my next question, because we do often refer to our past VPs as leaders, visionaries, builders, people who dug in and truly developed something transformative.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you about just 3 VPs from different points in time, and I want you to tell me your favorite, your very, very favorite building moment.
I'm not going to do that.
From each of them.
I'll get in trouble.
No. You don't have to tell me which one is your favorite, but your favorite moment from each of them.
Oh, okay.
Okay? So I'm not going to, you don't have to pick your favorite. No. And I didn't pick anyone who's I didn't pick anyone who's currently working for the University of Washington. So tell me a little bit, like maybe one of your favorite building moments from Dr. Kelly first, from Dr. Appilato second, and from Rusty Barcelo.
For Dr. Kelly, he was a giant, and he was a military guy, a lieutenant colonel. And what I think like most about him was that when he was offered the job, he was offered a job to be the director of the special education program. And Dr. Kelly said, "I would not take this job unless you made me vice president." And he was a military guy, so he understood the hierarchy. And he knew that if you were down here as director, you got all these other people that you have to go through to get to the president, wasn't not much going to be done. And with him, this man can make things happen. He wanted to have the person that when he talked to them, things would happen. So he chose, he said, I need to be the vice president. And as it turns out, he is the first vice president of a minority program in America. And once he became vice president, he changed the name to the Office of Minority Affairs. And then he changed special education from the education to the Educational Opportunity Program. And he knew that stigma that was being placed on, special education. It was really the special educational program, which is different than special education. But he said he didn't want it to conflict with the special education program they had in the College of Education. So he did it real smooth. And plus, the EOP program existed in Berkeley since 1966. At UC Santa Barbara, they had EOP programs across the nation. And Sam was really aware, and he knew that would be the perfect program, the perfect name for that program. So he named it the Educational Opportunity Program. And that's exactly what we wanted to happen with the students who came to the UW, regardless of the level. And they had students coming in with GEDs and GPAs less than 2.0. But if they showed potential, then we wanted to give them the opportunity to get an education. So that was Sam Kelly. And the other thing I liked about it, we used to go and challenge him all the time. We'd just walk in his office when he'd make an appointment, start talking trash to him, and he would talk right back to us. And after all of that, I was one of the people that he really promoted, and I used to give him grief. So he didn't hold grudges. He was a great man. And being named, that's ECC being named after him is very appropriate. So the next person is Myron Appilato. Myron's my guy because when Myron came, Myron recognized that it was the instructional center that was the key to the success of our students at the university. And I think he was kind of motivated when one of the regents told him that we're going to get rid of that program. The retention levels are low, so we need to just get rid of it. So Myron got behind the instruction center, and he really promoted it, and he helped us bring more staff, and he was always talking about how great the program was. He called it the flagship. Ricky calls it the gym, but Myron called it the flagship. And another thing that Myron did is Myron was responsible for creating the endowment that exists in OMAD in the 90s, you know, because whatever money we got, we gave it out. But Myron thought that we need to keep that money, use the interest from the endowment to provide scholarships and support for our students. So that endowment, I mean, the EOP endowment was the first one. Actually, it was a regent. Weber was the first endowment, and then it moved on. And to this day, that endowment is $11 million. It is larger than some historically black colleges and universities. So Myron set the pace. He promoted academic performance, the support for that, and he also helped contributed to creating an endowment that is steadily growing. So kudos to my comrade friend.
Yes, yes. And what about Dr. Barcelo?
Rusty.
Yes.
Yeah. Rusty came in, you know, Rusty was a great communicator, and she loved to do presentations. But it was Rusty's idea to bring diversity into OMAD, to pair the two together. And she wanted for the minority program, if you will, to have a seat on the academic side of the house. So she created the diversity aspects of it. She was about having a diversity appraisal. We wanted to look at every department in school, in college, and see what have you done, or what's been done about diversity. She was about that. The Diversity Council was created under her, and Rusty had the high ideals about what should happen. And one of the quotes I was reading when I was anticipating what questions I might be asked was that about the need for a program like this. And Rusty said that as long as there's discrimination, especially as long as there's racism and other isms, there need to be a program like this. And she said people needed to realize that diversity was not a problem, it was a value added. And she was at that level, and she communicated that with people at all different levels. And even though you didn't ask me about it, Sheila even took it further. She took it further, and that's one of those things she should have had. No, I'm just kidding around.
This is what we do.
Yeah. But anyway, because Sheila took it to the next level, and she started involving all the different departments and colleges and schools about their role in the diversity effort. And she also wanted the story to be told so that we all would know how this all came about. And she was, like I said, she used the data to prove to the institution that even though you took money from us, you should give it back because, backfield it, because what we're doing is the best in the country. She did self-studies that showed, and we found out, that we didn't realize that we were already a model. And it was because of doing a self-study that Sheila instituted that we found that out. We always thought the IC was because there were people coming from different institutions. Even the University of Michigan were coming to look at the instruction center, LSU, Oregon State, Washington State, San Francisco State. Even a school from South Africa came to look at our model. So we knew we were doing good. but to take it to make the entire OMAD a model was really the key, and was really what I wanted to try to show in doing the book. And I think even I think it was during Sheila's tenure, it's called Moving Toward the National Model Status, because it was Sheila who wanted it to be there. Our graduation rates had gone from a gap of 30-some percentage points to down to less than 10. And we were looking pretty good. We were comparing ourselves to other institutions, and we were close to 80%. And she was saying, well, what about the other 20%? You know, they need to be graduating too. So she wasn't satisfied with what we had, and that's the attitude we have, and we need to have. That's why we have 50 Next, because we want to close the gap all the way.
Yes,
And ideally, to create the gap, the negative gap.
Yes.
But
yes.
it was all through what Sheila.
Yes.
So yeah, Sheila, she did a lot for me, and if she hadn't decided to when we had this the 40th anniversary celebration, and we was on the Eddie Ryan talk show, and people were telling us about who we were, and she'd say, we need to write a book. Plus, our story wasn't being told nationally, and now hopefully this book will take it all the way there. And so, kudos to you, Dr. Lang.
I'm going to invite people who have questions to start making their way to the microphone, but I do have I have more questions. I have a lot more questions.
I know, yeah.
But
It's good.
I want to ask about a quote that started the 50 Next chapter, and it's something that we talk about a lot, and it's the Henry Louis Gates quote.
Yeah.
How have we come so far, yet still have so far to go?
Yeah.
And I find that quote both hopeful and hard, because we're doing what we know to do. We're doing the best that we can. We're improving. We're going higher. Talk me through why you chose that quote and what it means to you.
Yeah. But the backstory is that my wife likes to watch Henry Louis Gates. We even got a picture with him. And I heard that quote. And we're talking about the advances that the movement had made. But, you know, we still have so far to go. So it sounds the perfect segue into what Ricky named the last chapter, 50 Next. And because we haven't closed the enrollment gap, we have probably 26% of the 18 to 24-year-olds who are underrepresented minorities in this state. We at best have 16% here. So you got enrollment gap. Not to mention that some of the groups are going to increase by 50% in the next 10 years, according to predictions. So we're going to have even more that we need to serve. So, and we need to serve them all and prepare them to take their rightful place in society. The same retention rates are almost there. Graduation rates, there's still a gap. Academic performance, especially in the STEM required course, the prerequisites, still there is a gap. There's like biology 180, CSE 142, 143. You know, we have a significant gap between the students we serve and the overall population. When we look at students graduating in STEM, we're far behind. Since we brought on the Lewis Stokes Alliance for Minority Participation, which Sheila was instrumental in bringing to the UW, we've doubled the number who are enrolled who have earned degrees in STEM, but we still like only halfway when we compare the population. And we look at the mean earning gap, for some groups, it's a $55,000 gap. In education, there's a huge gap. So we need to close all of those gaps. That's why we still have so far to go, because all those gaps need to be closed. And we need to be ever vigilant and ever pressing toward making that happen and not accepting any of these deficit excuses for why we can't do it. You know, we don't have the money and all that. That's BS. We got lots of money. And we put the money where we feel is important. And by you not doing it, you're telling us that we're not as important. And that's why we need to hold their feet to the fire about making that happen.
I want to see if there are any questions from the audience. We have about five minutes. Yeah.
So I went too long anyway.
No. We started a little late. It's not, no. Yes, right over here.
Well, you're a physicist now. You know how to make it happen, right?
Gotta get access to the wires in order to do that, brother.
All right, all right.
So look, I don't need the microphone. Okay? Al Heron, particle physicist, electrical engineer, and my first quarter at the University of Washington, I had to attend using an emergency student loan. My grade point was 2.3, I think it was, and I only brought that up by taking multiple physics courses and math courses at the same time at Roosevelt High School. And so as soon as I came into this university, I was being cared for by the EOP, Office of Minority Affairs. I wouldn't be here. So the thing
Thank you.
about it is, that I've learned from hearing you talk, okay, is that I benefited from the Instructional Center, from the ECC, from OMA, from Dr. Birdwell, okay? And I had no idea the connective tissue between all those things until just now. So
great.
I have to tell you, you're right, this book is needed, so that some of the other young idiots that come in and want to know more about what it is they're benefiting from. That's not a question, that's a statement. I'm proud to be to have benefited from it, to be a part of, I hope, the success story, continuing success story. And I'm also Phi Beta Sigma, brother. So I just wanted to say that. I'm just really happy to hear you talk, to learn more. I'm motivated to learn more. And STEM Tech Foundation, my nonprofit, which has been working for 10 years, it's helped 12,000 students. That wouldn't exist without my having participated and been a part of it.
That's why you're in the book as one of the notable EOP alums. Yeah, he also got a celebration award when he was here, and he was one of the presidents of the Black Student Union. So yeah.
Other questions? I have another question while we're waiting. Is there anything that you would have wanted to add to the book that, due to time constraints or space constraints or research constraints, that just couldn't quite get to?
But the main ones was the biographies of the notable EOP alums. And because whenever I did a notable EOP alum, you see in the book just names, degrees earned. And there were some that had the student cases that got more narrative written about them. But each one of those who appear had stories behind them, and that didn't get to be told. And Peter said that, it'd make the book too big if you did. So that's one of the things. But I think we're going to try to rectify that by creating a website where we can include all the notable alums. The other thing that I was restricted on was we're the Office of Minority Affairs and Diversity, so we had to be mindful of gender and ethnicity. So there are people who were left out, should have been included, but to do that, we would have got in trouble. And first, Ricky wasn't going to let it happen because he's very serious about, you know, that we make sure that it's diverse. This bottom picture on the book was a different picture initially. And we can say, oh, no, we can't have that. Because we got to represent all the different groups. And he's right. So far, I haven't had any criticisms about people being left out, because I tried to be totally inclusive. I did kind of favor lawyers and doctors. But they are the ones who had achieved a lot. We have people who are shareholders in law firms, partners in law firms. The person who has just became the federal judge for Western Washington District, Jamal Whitehead, was one of our students. He was in BSU, he was SAB, and people like that. Salvador Mendoza didn't even get included, and he just became a judge for the appellate court in the state of Washington. And the other thing too is, my memory served me pretty good because I could remember a lot of people, and we had data on IC users and data on former Celebration Award winners, so I used that. And I'll tell you the story, when I was searching for that biography, because I wanted to do their work history. And I went to LinkedIn, and I used it so many times, LinkedIn would cut me off during certain months, and I have to wait until the next month to start searching again. Because they wanted to sell me a premium, and I didn't want to buy the premium. So, yeah. So that was one of my regrets. I think we did a pretty good job of covering everything else, because there were 40-some people who had personal communications, and I interviewed 22. So I think we covered pretty much everything that we should have covered. That's why it took 5 years to get it done.
So we're going to do Regent Harris, and I think these will be our last two questions. Yeah, Regent Harris.
Thank you. It's more of a, I don't think the mic works, but it's more of a comment that I want to say. I've never shared the story before, but I was an undergrad here. I didn't come through EOP, so I was having issues my first, second year about my courses and all that, and I went through, back then, advising with Central. So I went to Central Advising to get support, and it was a white advisor. And they looked at me and said, no, you need to go to EOP. Like, I couldn't get support from the general campus. And so I just want to say that and acknowledging that EOP affects so many other students more than you're even counting, more than you're
Yes.
because that's where I got my support for, in that community to be here. So I just want to say thank you for everything that you've done in the past, but also moving forward, you always show up.
Yeah.
I can always expect to see you to show up and to support us, the faculty of color, or dancing at our Black Faculty Collective. You're always here. Like, really, I know I was like, where are your shoes? All of us in this room would just want to say that. Thank you.
Yeah, and I want to say, back in '81, they got rid of the Group 1 EOPs. And so we figured out a way to get them back by creating an early identification program. And Alexis was a presidential scholar in that program.
Yes.
email, I am just so elated to be here. April Bowman, class of 2005, and proud EOP alumni. And I just want to say thank you, email, for all that you have done and poured into so many of us over these decades and still continue to be involved in our lives. I had an event here, I flew from Dallas to be here, but email purchased a ticket to support my event on Sunday, even though he couldn't make it, just to continue that support. So I just want to say thank you and publicly acknowledge you because you never stopped.
Right.
Even though we graduated years and decades ago, or we've gone on and done many things, but you stayed present and consistent. And I want to publicly say thank you. And also, just ask you directly, how can we continue to carry out your legacy? What are
Yes.
those marching orders you have for us who's in this room, who's watching, who's streaming, and those who will watch it a later date? How can we continue their legacy here at the university and beyond?
Yeah, I would say reach back and pay it forward, And also, if you have an opportunity to connect with some of these undergraduates, and since we have social media and also everything is virtual, I mean, we have virtual opportunities to latch on to some of these students and be their inspiration. Rachel and Anthony Rose, they were during that period of that time. And so Anthony Rose, he chose me to be his mentor in 2001. And he even convinced me to join his fraternity. So he's pretty persuasive, and I'm really proud of him, and I'm so very pleased that everyone came to this event. And Jeanette was right; I didn't need the questions ahead of time, and so.
You know,
I appreciate you,
I
Jeanette.
appreciate you.
Thank
Yes, yeah. Oh, gosh. Eric, can we do one more question?
One question, right?
Yes.
Did you guys videotape the interviews? Because, no, I'm talking about for the book, right? Because I'm thinking about, you mentioned Huey Lewis, it's all good. I'm talking loud. So you talked about Henry Louis Gates. You did all these amazing interviews and all this data. And I think another thing, to April's point, for the legacy going on is maybe the UW could figure out some type of endowment or funding to go towards getting some oral history of interviews, not only a website, but this is just for me as a storyteller, of having individual stories where you could sit back, you could interview people because you have an amazing memory,
Yeah.
talk to them about that, we videotape it, and then it's this archive that is a digital archive of all these amazing alumni that you've influenced, that come through EOP and everything, but now it's recorded history.
Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good. You know, you got the president's ear, so you got the president's ear, so go directly at him.
I'll talk to them.
I think the VP gave a thumbs up.
Okay. All right. There you go.
Oh,
That's what's
gosh.
And
happening there.
then we got to get the IC renamed to the Emil Petrie Instructional Center for
Hey. It sounds great. I like it.
Well, I'm gonna wrap us up. I'm gonna take a moment of personal privilege and thank you again for your support of me. I also didn't come through EOP. I didn't do my undergraduate degree here. It took me forever to finish my doctorate, but the day of my defense, who was there? Emil, cheering me on. You've always been in my corner. And I just appreciate you. I always say I count it as a point of pride that I'm in the office that you were in. I'm trying to just hold it down the way you would want me to and do the best that I can.
Great.
Thank you for all that you've done for me and for so many others, personally, professionally. You're the standard. You are the blueprint.
Thank you
So
for your
thank
kind
you.
words.
Thank you
Really
so
appreciate it.
much. Thank you so much. And just a couple of small housekeeping. Yes, go ahead. Give it up. Give it up. Give it up. Before we exit, I do have a couple of small housekeeping items. First, I want to say thank you on behalf of OMAD and Vice President Hall to everyone for being here, for Emil being here, for his brilliance. We do have copies of the book for sale. Emil will be signing, so feel free to start lining up and getting ready for that. And OMAD celebration right around the corner, May 17th in the Husky Union Building. Please remember to register ASAP. And another big round of applause for Emil.